Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Anye Tveva Majananta Shrudvanyebhya Upasate Depi Chatittarantyeva Mrityum Shruti Parayanaha. Translation. Again, there are those who, although not conversant in spiritual knowledge, begin to worship the Supreme Person upon hearing about Him from others. Because of their tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend the path of birth and death. This verse is particularly applicable to modern society, because in modern society there is practically no education in spiritual matters. Some of the people may appear to be atheistic or agnostic or philosophical, but actually there is no knowledge of philosophy. As for the common man, if he is a good soul, then there is a chance for advancement in hearing. His hearing process is very important. Okay, you can read up to that. Lord Chaitanya, who preached Krishna consciousness in the modern world, gave great stress to hearing, because if the common man simply hears from authoritative sources, he can progress, especially according to Lord Chaitanya, if he hears the transcendental vibration. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It is stated, therefore, that all men should take advantage of hearing from realized souls and gradually become able to understand everything. The worship of the Supreme Lord will then undoubtedly take place. Lord Chaitanya has said that in this age no one needs to change his position, but one should give up the endeavor to understand the absolute truth by speculative reasoning. One should learn to become the servant of those who are in knowledge of the Supreme Lord. If one is fortunate enough to take shelter of a pure devotee, hear from him about self-realization and follow in his footsteps, one will be gradually elevated to the position of a pure devotee. In this verse particularly, the process of hearing is strongly recommended, and this is very appropriate. Although the common man is often not as capable as so-called philosophers, faithful hearing from an authoritative person will help one transcend this material existence and go back to Godhead, back to home. In this verse, Lord Krishna stresses how simply by hearing one can become liberated from material entanglement. Anavriti Shabdat. These are the last words of Vedanta Sutra, which states that one who attains the liberation which is mentioned, which is described in the Vedanta Sutra, does not come back. This is confirmed in Shastra. Therefore, it should be accepted as such. That is the generally understood meaning of that. Prabhupada also gave another meaning, that Anavriti Shabdat, one is liberated by hearing. So the importance of hearing from authoritative sources about the Supreme Lord is being stressed. Earlier in the Bhagavad-gita, Lord Krishna has also emphasized this to Arjuna. Maya saktamana partha yogam yunjanmadashrayaha asamsayam samagram mang yatha nyasasi tat trinu. He says, O Arjuna, with mind attached to me and in full consciousness of me, you should hear from me, because by such hearing you can be completely freed from all doubt. So he tells Arjuna, Shrinu, hear from me. The same hearing process is being recommended here. And in the purport, Prabhupada quotes yet another verse which stresses the hearing process. He paraphrases it, he doesn't directly quote it. A verse from Srimad Bhagavatam that was given very great importance by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Jnane prayasamudapasya namanta eva jivanti sanmukharitam bhavati avartam sthane stita shutigatam tanuvang manobhi ye prayasam chitajitopi apitraistrilokya. In this verse, the words are there that one should hear. Again, shutigatam, the process of hearing. That one should give up the endeavor simply to try to understand everything by acquiring academic knowledge. This process of trying to become a very great learned person is actually antithetical to bhakti. Bhakti means to accept that I am inferior to the Supreme Lord, I am His servant. But in material existence, if we have a lot of money, or if we're very learned, or if we somehow that we get many followers, we tend to get this abhiman, this big false ego of thinking, I'm God or I am very great. Dhane jane panditye krishnere nahi pai, keval bhakti vas chaitanya gosha. That by money, by popularity, or by becoming a great scholar, even of the Vedic literature, one cannot attain Krishna. But Krishna, not only can you get Krishna, but Krishna actually becomes under the control of a devotee who has pure unalloyed devotion for him. So the endeavor to become a great scholar is condemned to be simply amassing masses of information within his brain cells. But instead one should become humble. And one should hear about Krishna from self-realized souls. It requires humility to hear. Generally we like that others will hear us. To hear, one has to have respect for the speaker. Sometimes, I'm not talking about spiritual matters, but in ordinary life, we can find it very frustrating if we're trying to discuss something with someone and they don't like to listen, they only like to talk. They'll only talk and they won't hear one word from you. So it's said that one of the qualities of a leader is the ability to listen. So generally we think a leader means someone who others listen to him. Do this, do that, go there, do that. But the quality of a good leader is that he knows, he understands that, well, I don't know everything, and maybe others, they have some good ideas also, so I can listen to them also. Of course, a good leader also has to be intelligent enough to understand that not everything everyone says is a good idea. But you see that many of the great leaders in human society, their plans failed because they were not prepared to listen to others. To give a mundane example, Herr Hitler was advised by his generals not to attack Russia. And then even when he started the campaign, he was well into the campaign, he was advised by them not to attack Stalingrad, you should concentrate on Moscow. But he didn't listen. On the Western Front also, his General Rommel gave him advice, he didn't listen. And eventually, his plans, the whole Germany was completely smashed. The ability to listen, even though one has himself good intelligence, the ability to listen and take advice from others, that is a good quality in this material world. Now, hearing in spiritual matters, hearing from a guru or hearing from a self-realized devotee, that is a little different. One has to hear with the faith that what is being told is absolutely correct. As Arjuna said to Krishna, Sarvam etadritang manye yang mang vadasi Keshava, that, oh Krishna, I accept absolutely is correct everything you tell me. Actually, I just gave a lecture last night discussing this verse, how it sounds like blind faith, why it's not blind faith, why it's very reasonable faith for Arjuna to say this. But his attitude in accepting Krishna is not exactly the same where, well, I have my opinion, you have your opinion, let's discuss and come to some conclusion. It's not like that. In discussing the absolute truth, it means exactly that, absolute. Absolute means it's not subject to opinion. Many people think that, well, there are many different opinions about spiritual life and you can just choose which is the best for you. This is actually not a very good proposition, even in most material matters, that you just choose whatever is best for you. Because there are certain fixed facts of this material world that we have to act in consonance of. Just like, for instance, if we are feeling thirsty, we should drink something which is either water or something based on water, such as Sharbat, or Pepsi Cola, or beer. These are all different drinks, they're all based on water. Now, sunflower oil is also a liquid. If we're thinking, I'm thirsty, I should drink something, that means I should drink something liquid. But if we drink one glassful of liquid sunflower oil, it won't have the same effect as drinking a glass of water or Pepsi, Cola or beer. Beer also quenches the thirst, but we don't recommend it. So you may say, well, you can drink anything you like according to your taste. So do you want to drink some ink? It's also liquid. Maybe you say, why do the same as everybody else? Why not be different? It's just boring drinking water all the time. Why not drink a bottle of ink or bleach or sunflower oil? Be different. Express yourself. Be an individual. So why should this not be done? Do we need a doctor to explain why? We have some doctors here. But we don't need a doctor to explain to us that it's not a very good idea to drink a glass full of ink or sunflower oil. Ritual. So in other words, we can understand from this rather absurd example that there are certain axioms of this, even in this material world, that we have to act in relationship with. There are certain things which are fixed, and you can't say, well, you just according to your taste, or you just you can drink ink or sunflower oil and it's all the same. You have to drink water, or at least things based on water. And things based on water which are, in other words, the things which are mixed with the water. If it's lemonade, that's okay. If it's ink, that's also water-based. That's not okay. So in the same way, in spiritual life, there are certain fixed facts of cosmic existence. But when we're talking about spiritual existence, these are very subtle facts. But it is as essential to our spiritual existence to know what exactly we require for our spiritual nourishment, as it is essential for our bodies to know to drink water and not ink. Because we are on the gross bodily platform, it's easy for us to understand that drinking water is good for the body, drinking ink isn't. Now, there's the gross bodily platform, there's also the mental platform. This is more subtle than the gross bodily platform. And still some people can understand what's good for them on the mental platform, but many people are also confused in this matter. For instance, not very long ago, it used to be quite well accepted among parents that it's not very good to let your children watch violent movies and sexy movies, because this doesn't do any harm to the body, but we can understand that it pollutes the mentality. But nowadays, parents, mostly they don't care. You watch whatever's there, whatever you like. Don't bother me, and you just watch TV. So that discrimination of what is good on the mental level, even that is gone. That is a more subtle level than the bodily level, the mental or the level of conscientiousness. Then even more subtle is the spiritual level. And most people are so dull that they really have very little idea about this at all. And if they do have any idea, they tend to be very confused. It tends to be a very confused idea. Just like there's one popular idea about God, that he first of all made one man, and then he pulled a bone out of the man, which became a woman. And then because this man and woman, they ate an apple, the whole human race has been suffering ever since. But God came down to this earth and died, and then that cleared away the sins of those who believe he was God. So this is a very confused and very foolish kind of idea, which only people who have no real idea of any philosophy could even begin to accept. And there are many such foolish ideas. There is some people accept that God has incarnated in a village in Andhra Pradesh, and his great contribution to human society is drinking water project. They don't consider that, well, if he was God, he could just send some rain and then you don't need all these drinking water projects. So as Prabhupada notes here in the Prabhupada, that in the modern society, actually there's no knowledge of philosophy. Prabhupada notes here that some people may appear to be atheistic or agnostic or in this way somewhat philosophical, but actually there's no knowledge of philosophy. Our devotees who are preaching Krishna consciousness, they're often very frustrated in this regard, because when we study Srila Prabhupada's books, then and when we hear from devotees, then we get such clear understanding of the philosophy of the Absolute Truth. And then we go to speak with people, even with people who are supposed to be intelligent, and they're so philosophically foolish that it's very difficult to discuss anything with them. For instance, I was once discussing with a man, and I was giving an example of a blind man and how the cataracts have to be removed. The ability to see is there, but it's covered by an artificial covering called the cataract. This man was so stupid. I mean, I'll tell you how stupid he was. He said, why do you think blind people are inferior?
He is asking.
Yeah, we challenge like that. What have you got against blind people? Why are you discriminating against them? How can you discuss with people who are so stupid? That's why it said you should never argue with a fool, because other people won't be able to tell the difference. I told that one before. Right? It's an ongoing... It's not a joke. I mean, it's a good piece of advice. I've many times had this experience, especially traveling on long train journeys. And, it's a long journey, so time passed. You say that in Tamil? Time passed? They don't say it in English, but they say it in all varieties of Indian languages which have adopted it from some form of English. In Hindi and Tamil and all these languages. In English they say past time, but anyway. So anyway, they want to pass that time, and so they start asking, well, what is this? What is this Hare Krishna? What do you believe? And this and that. But then you start to speak the philosophy of Bhagavad-gita, and then they start all their stupid protests. And you'll find that mostly all the people, they'll support whatever foolish position is. Everyone suddenly becomes a great philosopher, and they start supporting all different foolish positions. And many times I've had the experience. They'll all say that no, what's wrong with this? What's wrong with enjoying this material world? And like this they go on, and even old men, they're probably going to die with it any time. They can drop dead, because anyone can drop dead, but older men especially, and they're saying, no, we should enjoy life. So there's no knowledge of philosophy, and it's very difficult to find anyone who's actually sincere to understand any real philosophy. But somehow or other, if one can have sufficient humility to understand that I need to hear from someone who knows the facts of the absolute truth, then he can be benefited. Most people, they cannot hear this Krishna conscious philosophy. It's too painful for them to hear that I am subordinate to the Supreme Lord. It's very painful. You may think, well, most people believe in God, but actually they don't. They just say God, 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 God. But if you discuss with them, their concept of God is as a non-person. And if he's some kind of person, he's someone who his job is to fulfill all your personal desires. That we have to give up our personal desires and act according to his personal desires. Most people cannot hear that. And these things, that giving up meat eating, gambling, illicit sex, coffee, and all these kind of things, it's too painful for most people to hear. So people can't hear because it's too painful. Another kind of person, they can't hear means they really cannot hear. It means the sound may enter their eardrum, but it doesn't get processed by the neurons. It just kind of goes in there and dissolves. Manda buddhi. As they say in English, and you probably say something similar in Tamil, it goes in one ear and out the other. I've met many people like this. They say, oh, I saw you on TV many times. I happen to be a TV star, just if you didn't know. So I saw you on TV so many times. Here, come, I'll buy you a cup of tea. But every time on TV I'm saying no tea. But they didn't hear it. They heard it. It's Shrinvan api na shrinvati. They hear, but they don't hear. They just say, oh, you see, white man speaking Hindi. Very nice Hindu. But they don't hear what is said. So if one has the humility and the good intelligence to understand that my intelligence is limited and I need to understand about the absolute truth from those who know, then they can begin to progress. And actually there are some people who also listen, just like you are listening now. And you can make progress in Krishna consciousness by hearing. Not only by hearing, but by chanting, by serving, by associating with devotees. But hearing is essential. Even if we chant and do service, if we don't hear properly, then we won't have a clear understanding of why we are doing what we are doing, and therefore we won't advance properly. Unless we hear properly from devotees, then the anarthas, or the unwanted things in our hearts, lust, greed, anger, envy, they will remain there. Unless we're prepared to hear, and hear means not only intellectually, but to accept that those instructions within our hearts, unless we're prepared to do that, then even our chanting may increase our sense of pride, which is the opposite of bhakti. Even studying, even reading the Shastra, that can simply increase our pride. That now I'm becoming very learned and all this. That's why in the Krishna conscious process, it's not simply that we read books, but we have to hear from and associate with and take guidance regularly from devotees. We stress, read Prabhupada's books, but hear from devotees also, associate with devotees. So all this class has been on the subject of how we have to hear Krishna and the philosophy that Krishna teaches us. Sometimes we can have a whole class just on the importance of hearing, so that when we again come to class, that we'll hear very nicely, understanding the importance of hearing. So please come regularly. Try to hear from the devotees here who can guide you in understanding how to understand the supreme, subtle, absolute truth who is Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. I could say much more about this, but it's fairly late. You all have to go to work or school or whatever tomorrow. So, and we also have to rise early tomorrow morning, so we'll finish that. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Again, thank you for your very nice welcome. It's very, very happy to see all of you again and some new faces also. Hare